America is at war with Iran. Right now. Today. Missiles, airstrikes, ships sunk in the Indian Ocean. And the news is covering every detail, except one. 40 years ago, America was secretly selling weapons to Iran. Not threatening Iran, not sanctioning Iran, arming Iran. Illegally, in secret, while publicly telling the world it would never negotiate with terrorists. There was a man in the basement of the White House running the operation. His name was Oliver North, a Marine lieutenant colonel. He sold weapons to Iran, took the money, and used it to fund a war that Congress had explicitly banned. When it came to light, the President of the United States stood before the American people and said he knew nothing. 14 people were indicted, 11 convicted. Nobody went to prison. This is the Iran-Contra affair. And before you watch another minute of news coverage about the war with Iran, you need to understand what America was doing with Iran the last time nobody was supposed to know. What were they doing? And why does it matter right now? The answer starts in 1984, because history does not repeat, but the people who run it often do. 1984, Ronald Reagan. The Cold War tightening its grip. America and the Soviet Union locked in a silent confrontation. Every move watched. Every country on Earth a potential square on the board. In Central America, Nicaragua had shifted. A left-wing government, the Sandinistas. Reagan saw it as a communist foothold too close to ignore. So he backed a rebel force, the Contras. Armed, funded, supported, until Congress stepped in and shut it down. The Boland Amendment. No money, no support, no involvement. Clear, absolute law. The operation stopped, at least on paper. At the same time, in Lebanon, American hostages were being held. Iran held the influence, and Iran needed weapons. It was at war with Iraq, running out of options. But the United States had banned all arms sales to Iran. Two problems. Separate, unconnected, until someone decided they weren't. In the basement of the White House, Oliver North saw a way through. Not a negotiation, not a policy, something else entirely. Sell weapons to Iran, use the money to fund the Contras. No approval, no oversight, no record. Bypass Congress, bypass the law, bypass the Constitution itself. And when it was done, make sure nobody could prove it happened. For 2 years, it worked, until a small magazine in Lebanon published a story that nobody in Washington expected anyone to read. The story was published. The questions started. And then Reagan went on television. And what he said, and what his own government admitted a week later, is one of the most extraordinary contradictions ever delivered by a sitting American president. November 13th, 1986. Ronald Reagan went on television, looked into the camera, and said, "The United States has not swapped boatloads of weapons for the return of American hostages." He said it clearly, calmly, with the certainty of a man who believed every word. A week later, his own Attorney General held a press conference and admitted that money from the arms sales had been diverted to the Contras. Reagan went back on television and said, "A few months ago I told the American people I did not trade arms for hostages. My heart and my best intentions still tell me that is true. But the facts and the evidence tell me it is not." Read that again. The President of the United States on national television saying his heart told him one thing, but the facts said another. 14 people were indicted, 11 convicted. Nobody went to prison. Reagan testified that he could not remember. "I do not recall." He said it 240 times under oath in a single deposition. 240 times. The man who led the free world could not recall. And the world accepted it, because the world did not know what was actually happening in that basement. Because what Oliver North had built in that room
was not just an operation. It was a parallel government, with its own army, its own air force, its own bank accounts, its own foreign policy, running inside the White House, invisible to Congress, invisible to the American people. They called it the enterprise. The enterprise. Who ran it, how it worked, and how much of your money disappeared into it. Because the enterprise was not just illegal, it was a business, and the people running it were making money from it. A lot of money, most of which was never supposed to be found.
Here is how it worked. America sold weapons to Iran, not directly, through Israel first to keep American fingerprints off the transaction. The weapons were TOW missiles, anti-tank missiles, sent to a government America had publicly declared an enemy. Iran paid for them. The money went into a Swiss bank account controlled by a private arms dealer called Richard Secord. Secord took his cut. His business partner, Albert Hakim, took his cut. What remained was sent to the Contras in Nicaragua to fund the war that Congress had banned. $30 million was raised. $3.8 million reached the Contras. The rest disappeared. Into accounts, into commissions, into the pockets of men who knew the operation would never be audited because it did not officially exist. Oliver North sat in his basement office and shredded documents. Not some documents, everything. He shredded for days after the story broke, after the investigation began, while the Attorney General's investigators were already in the building. His secretary Fawn Hall helped him. She later testified that she had smuggled documents out of the White House, hidden in her clothing, past the Secret Service, out of the most secure building in America, because that is how desperate the cover-up had become. Oliver North stood before Congress in his Marine uniform, decorated, composed. He did not deny what he had done. He said he believed he was serving his country, that he had followed orders, that the people above him knew. John Poindexter, Reagan's national security advisor, testified that he had made the decision to divert the funds on his own and had deliberately kept the president uninformed, to give him plausible deniability. Plausible deniability. A system where the man at the top is deliberately kept ignorant so that when it falls apart, he can say he did not know and be telling the truth. North was convicted on 3 counts, overturned on appeal. Poindexter convicted on 5 counts, overturned on appeal. Caspar Weinberger, Secretary of Defense, indicted on 5 counts. On Christmas Eve 1992, President George H.W. Bush pardoned him, along with 5 others. On Christmas Eve, when the news cycle was at its quietest. The independent counsel Lawrence Walsh called it a cover-up of the cover-up. Nobody went to prison. But Reagan kept a diary, every day, in his own hand. And in that diary were entries describing the arms deal in detail, the negotiations, the hostages, the hope that it would work. The man who could not recall had written it all down. He wrote it down, which means he knew. Which means the question is not whether the cover-up worked. The question is what it tells us about how power actually operates, and what it means for the war happening right now. Iran-Contra is not a story about one rogue operation. It is a story about how power actually works. Power does not operate in the rooms you can see. It operates in the rooms nobody is supposed to know about. The enterprise was not an aberration. It was a template for how the people at the top retain control while maintaining distance from the decisions that keep them in control. Plausible deniability. The system is designed so that the most powerful person in the room is always the person who can most convincingly say they did not know. And here is where 1986 connects to right now. America is at war with Iran in 2026. The same Iran that America was secretly arming in 1986. The same region, The same players at the level of institution, if not individual. The same pattern of public position contradicted by private action. In 1986, America publicly called Iran a terrorist state, while privately selling it weapons. The question worth asking about any conflict is never just what are they saying publicly, it is what is happening in the basement. Lawrence Walsh spent 7 years and $47 million investigating Iran-Contra. His conclusion? The cover-up had worked, not because the truth was never found, but because by the time the truth arrived, the mechanisms that should have delivered justice had already been neutralized. Pardons, appeals, classified documents, convenient memory loss. The tools of power used against the tools of accountability, every time. Which leaves one question, the most important one this video has been building toward. The question, the one that connects 1986 to 2026 and makes this story matter right now. If this happened in a White House basement in 1986, invisible to Congress, invisible to the public, for 2 years, what is happening right now? In what room? In what building? Around what conflict? That you will only find out about when someone accidentally publishes it in a magazine nobody was supposed to read. America is at war with Iran today, and the news will tell you why. The missiles, the strikes, the official position, the statements from Washington. What the news will not tell you is that the last time America and Iran were this deeply entangled, there was a man in a White House basement selling them weapons, funding an illegal war with the proceeds, and shredding the evidence while investigators walked the floors above him. 14 indicted, 11 convicted, 0 imprisoned, 6 pardoned on Christmas Eve. Reagan said his heart told him one thing, and the facts told him another. His diary told a third story entirely. The system did not fail. The system worked exactly as it was designed to work. Power protected itself. The mechanisms of accountability were neutralized one by one, and the men who ran a shadow government from a White House basement walked free. That is not ancient history. That is the operating manual. So as you watch the coverage of the war with Iran today, and you listen to the official explanations, and the public positions, and the stated reasons, remember Oliver North. Remember the basement. Remember that the most important things happening in any conflict are almost never the things being said at the podium. Stay around, because the archive is only getting started. The war happening now. The question you should carry, what's really going on and who's really benefiting? This is the Shadow Chronicle Archive. Thank you for watching, and like and subscribe for more stories like these that expose what's really going on behind the stories we are all being told.